Picture this. It is the mid-20th century. Your grandfather laces up his boots, heads to the factory with nothing but a high school diploma. He works full-time, comes home tired, yet manages to buy a 3-bedroom house for just twice his annual income. Not a fairy tale. In the 50s, a home cost $7,000. Household income was $3,000. Land was cheap, and housing was shelter, not speculation. Now wake up. It is 2026. You have a master's degree, endless skills, and a suspicious caffeine tolerance just to survive the day. To afford that same median home today, you need an income over $110,000. That is double the actual national average. The median home price sits around $420,000. Mortgage rates float near 7%, turning monthly payments into a financial chokehold. That white picket fence is not freedom anymore. It is a load-bearing liability. This is not just vibes. Folks, it is cold. Hard balance sheets. The U.S. sits on a housing affordability crisis, costing nearly $2 trillion. We turned homes into investment vehicles instead of places to live. So grab a cheap drink, because rent is due. We are investigating exactly who, or what, murdered the American housing dream. Reason number 1, the Great Inventory Drought. Let's go back to 1955. When Elmer bought his house, the market was flooded. Developers threw up bungalows like confetti, suburbs expanded. Zoning was loose, and construction was fast. Supply met demand effortlessly. They shook hands, signed the papers, and everyone went home to watch TV. Simple times, simple economics, simple life. Cut to today. The housing market is no longer a handshake. It is a cage match, where the prize is a tiny fixer-upper. The market is a fight for a 900-square-foot shack that smells like cat urine. The first pillar of this disaster is simple. We ran out of houses. You might see construction cranes everywhere, but what you are seeing is just a drop in a dry bucket. After the 2008 crash, U.S. builders didn't just slow down, they fundamentally changed. The subprime collapse wiped out developers and crushed lenders. Surviving builders became terrified of risk. For over a decade, they underbuilt relative to population growth. The result is a massive cumulative deficit. Estimates from Freddie Mac and others put the shortfall between 4 and 7 million homes. That is not a rounding error. That is missing cities. That brings us to the second half of the poison. No one wants to sell. Economists call this the lock-in effect. I call it golden handcuffs. Meet Bob. Bob bought his house in 2020. He locked in a 30-year fixed mortgage at a dangerously sexy 2.8%. Bob loves his rate. It is basically free money. He pays just $1,500 a month for a nice suburban home. Life is good for Bob. If Bob sells for a similar house today, his rate jumps to 7%. His monthly payment instantly doubles to $3,000. Why move? He won't. He is staying put. Remodeling the kitchen instead of listing. He is financially handcuffed to that low rate forever. Multiply Bob by millions holding cheap debt. This is why existing inventory is at historic lows. No sensible person is selling right now. If regular folks can't buy, and the Bobs won't sell, who is transacting? Enter the villain of this story, Wall Street investors. Cause number 3, institutional investors. The suit and tie guys realize single-family homes are safer bets than the volatile stock market casino. Since 2010, hedge funds and private equity firms have quietly scooped up starter homes by the tens of thousands every year. You show up with a pre-approval letter and shaky down payment. They show up with all cash offers and zero inspection contingencies. Guess who wins? Not you. In some Sunbelt markets, investors recently bought over 30% of all homes sold in a single quarter. They don't flip these houses. They turn them into permanent rentals, removing them from the ownership pool forever. You just rent the dream. It is not just faceless corporations blocking your path. It is also your sweet grandma. Cause number 4, the silver tsunami failure. We assumed that as boomers got older, they would downsize, sell the big family house, move into a condo or assisted living facility. That isn't happening. They are aging in place, thanks to better healthcare and stubbornness. They are holding on to those big 4-bedroom homes. Millions of prime starter family homes are occupied by ghost rooms, dusty Pelotons, and practically zero monthly mortgage payments. Boomers own nearly half of all housing wealth. Millennials, the largest current generation, own a pathetic, microscopic fraction of that pie. You might ask, why don't builders just build smaller, cheaper homes? That brings us to cause number 5, the profit problem. The starter home is functionally extinct. In the 70s, lots of new builds were small. Today, that number is almost 0%. The math doesn't work. Land, permits, and labor cost a fortune, regardless of size. The fixed costs are just way too high now. It costs nearly the same to build a small box as a McMansion. The significant profit margin is only found in luxury homes. So they build big houses for rich people, while the bottom rung of the property ladder has completely rotted away for everyone else. Cause 6, the Zoomtown hangover. Remote work promised freedom. Instead, it became an economic invasive species event for affordable cities. High earners fled expensive coasts with California salaries, parachuting into places like Boise, Austin, and Montana, instantly outbidding every single local. Prices in Boise spiked 60%. Locals didn't lose because they were bad with money. They lost because they earned local wages. Then came the hangover. Return to office mandates hit. But guess what? Home prices didn't crash back to pre-pandemic levels. They stayed high. We exported the housing crisis. Now, teachers and nurses in these towns can't afford to live where they work. Services collapse. Cause 7, the insurance apocalypse. If mortgage rates don't kill your budget, insurance premiums definitely will. It is the silent killer. In Florida and California, major insurers are fleeing. Premiums have tripled. In some places, insurance now costs more than the mortgage principal. It is not just hurricanes. It is hail in the Midwest and wildfires in the West. Climate risk is repricing American housing. If you get dropped, the bank forces expensive insurance on you to protect their asset, not yours. It is financial punishment. We are seeing a new trend. Foreclosures driven not by job loss, but by insurance making the monthly payment mathematically impossible. Cause 8. The renovation trap. You finally win a bidding war. Congratulations. You just bought a 40-year-old deferred maintenance time bomb. The median U.S. home is over 40 years old. It doesn't need a cute cosmetic update. It needs expensive structural archaeology. HGTV lied to you. Knocking down walls isn't fun. It reveals asbestos, rotting cast iron plumbing, and dangerous aluminum wiring hazards. Since 2020, renovation costs exploded. Materials are up. Labor is scarce. A simple $30,000 kitchen is now $70,000. You didn't buy a starter home. You bought a subscription to financial pain. Your disposable income now goes to emergency roof repairs. This creates the house-poor generation. They own the asset, but the asset owns their cash flow. They are living in construction zones. Cause 9. The psychological toll. This is what economists miss. When the goalpost moves faster than you can save, saving feels irrational. This is doom spending. Young people aren't buying lattes because they are lazy. They are buying small joys because the big dream died. It is a rational response to a rigged game. Why save for a down payment that grows by $30,000 every year? The American dream hasn't just paused. It has mutated. Survival now looks like co-living, renting forever, or redefining success entirely. This brings us to the most misunderstood trend. Adults living with their parents? 33% of young adults are back home. Society calls it laziness or failure. It is neither. It is a survival strategy in a rigged economy. Multi-generational living is adaptation. In most of the world, this is normal. Only in America do we treat family support as a personal moral failing. The U.S. is drifting toward a European model. Permanent rentership, smaller spaces. Later families. The rules of the game changed quietly and permanently. Ownership is no longer the default setting for American adulthood. It is now a luxury. Here is the silver lining. You are not crazy. You are not lazy. And you are not bad with money. You are operating in the most hostile housing environment since the Great Depression. The game is mathematically harder than your parents ever faced. Previous generations didn't win because they were smarter. They won because the difficulty setting was set to easy. Yours is on legendary. Recognizing this isn't self-pity, it is clarity. Once you stop blaming yourself for a systemic failure, you can start strategizing. Survival looks different now. Buying with friends, house hacking duplexes, relentless job hopping, redefining success beyond the white picket fence. None of these are failures. They are rational moves in a broken market. Don't let an asset class define your self-worth. The worst thing you can do is internalize a systemic collapse as a personal flaw. That is exactly what the system wants. Understanding the system doesn't guarantee you a house, but it prevents you from hating yourself for a game designed to exclude you. Knowledge is your only defense. Knowing why the door is locked is the first step to finding a window. Sometimes, renting and investing. The difference is the winning move. Don't be a house-poor martyr just to please outdated societal norms. The American dream isn't dead, but it has mutated. It requires new tactics, new expectations, and a lot less self-blame. If you want to survive this economy, you need to understand it first. That is what we do here. We decode the noise. Think it is bad here. Next time, we look at Canada, where this logic plays out to its terrifying, absolute extreme. Share your housing horror story in the comments. Are you renting, owning, or waiting? Let's talk about the reality, not the fantasy. I'm smart, buddy. Keep your head up, and keep your wallet close. Good luck out there.